Great. Well, thank you all and welcome. We have a packed agenda as I mentioned, so we'll get started with everyone. And I know we still have a couple of people that are going to be joining in, but welcome first. We have an interesting event, and I just want to make sure that can everyone see their screen? Maybe a thumbs up. Um, Okay, sounds good. And I don't actually know if people can see the speakers pinned onto their screen, or if you can only see the Google Slides. Alina, are you able to see the speakers pinned into the screen, or are you only able to see the presentation?
So I just see the speakers.
Oh, okay, so you can't see the presentation. Let me retry
Oh,
sharing.
sorry, I see the presentation and the speakers.
Oh, okay, and I think we need to add J. Here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so as we talked about, this is a webinar focused on ag plastic alternatives and recycling opportunities for California's Central Coast. What you will also find, though, is that some of these opportunities are available across California and to some of the surrounding states. So we're excited to share that with you all today. And this event was put together by Open Farm Tours with Penny. We also collaborated with the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary and California Sea Grant, and then with the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation. And as you can see in our screen, we have with us today Tanya from California Sea Grant, Salvador Flores from Flipping Iron, uh, Alina Anusin with the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation and on detail for the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Penny Ellis with Open Farm Tours, and Jay Ramos and Steve Padilla with ReGen of Monterey. And we will also have Adolfo joining us a little bit later, and he's also with Flipping Iron Team. A little bit of housekeeping rules. I want to give a special shout out to Erin, who's providing our interpretation services. Para cualquier persona que ocupe escuchar este webinar, esta junta en español, ustedes pueden presionar el botón de abajo donde dice interpretación y escoger que sea el audio en español y podrán escuchar todo lo que estamos diciendo en inglés hacia el español e interpretado por Erin. And we're also going to ask everyone to keep their cameras off during presentations. If you have any questions, either you can write them in the chat or during our Q&A period, you can press the raise the hand button and then we will call on you. And at that point, you can unmute and turn on your camera if you have any questions. And again, we just want to thank everyone. This has been all the work that we're presenting today is truly a collaborative project with partners across the board. And I probably have not included all the partners here, but again, just thank you very much to everyone. And all of this is definitely not a work that we've been doing by ourselves, but a very truly collaborative project. And we'll get our meeting started with a quick poll. And Alina will be leading that poll. And here in a second, you'll be able to answer a question. So we want to know who's in the room today, and you can choose your answer, and we'll all be able to see sort of the answers live. Okay, we have growers in the room, researchers, growership representatives, environmental organizations. Okay, seems like we're at 72% of people have been able to vote. Great. Well, welcome all and thank you all for coming. Move on to our a pretty good mix here today. And then we'll move on to our next question. Um, I don't know if it was.
Apologies, sorry, I put the wrong question, but folks did answer both of our questions. So one of the questions that followed the who's and the Zoom is what, or how do folks currently dispose of their ag plastics? And so we have folks recycling it, landfilling it, stockpiling, and also building forts with their kids.
Oh, very interesting. Very cool. Great. Well, thank you all for participating in that quick poll. And let's dive into it. One of the things that I really wanted to start with was for those that are not as familiar with California and its agriculture, we did have some people that registered to the event from other areas. I just want to highlight how important, the important role of California in regards to agriculture, and this is something that we're extremely proud of. And in this chart or in this table, you can see the crop and livestock commodities in which California leads the nation. And it's really impressive. But here in the bolded letters, these are actually the commodities in which California is, quote unquote, the sole producer or is producing over 99%. Um, so again, just the goal of this was to really highlight that important role of California. And when the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary was established about 30 years ago, we created the Agriculture Water Quality Alliance. And with that, we had one mission in mind, and that was to protect and enhance the water in the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary while sustaining a world-class production in agriculture. And so as we've moved along in our journey and different collaborative approaches, we've always had these two sort of items high in our mind. And we're also going to go a little bit into a Nat Geo Discovery Channel a little journey, and that's with how did plasticulture even get started? And the reason I'm going to talk about this is I think it's important for us to know where we came from, where we're at now, to know where we're headed into our future. And so plasticulture refers to the technology of plastic in agriculture practices. And, during the early or during the mid 1940s, Europe had discovered polyethylene plastic as an alternative to glass. And so later, a couple of years after that, in the late 1940s and early 1950s, Dr. Emery Emmerich from the University of Kentucky started doing some research and actually recognized that they could use, which at the time was new, plastic, polyethylene plastic, to replace glass in agriculture. And so he thought to himself, well, we can start with some trials replacing plastic for greenhouse glass. And then from there, as his research evolved, he started to research the use of plastic in plastic mulch as well as in row crop covers. And his work really revolutionized agriculture, and it provided a lot of great benefits. His life was short lived during this period. He passed away in 1962, so I'm not quite sure that he knew what a great positive impact he had in agriculture, but he definitely created a revolution within that technology realm. And now we have plasticulture technology used across a variety of different commodities, anything from almonds to lemons, strawberries, lettuce, sunflowers. Plasticulture is used throughout these different technologies. And a little bit of a perspective for California. So one of the internal studies conducted in 2023 suggested that there was about 528,000 metric tons of plasticulture used per year. And so this represents about 4% of total ag plastic used across the world. Um, and so as we're talking about the use of it, there's really important benefits to the use of this plastic. Um, if we look at actual benefits from a labor perspective, plastic mulch, so in this case, this thin plastic film that's used in strawberry beds, can reduce weed emergence by 64 to 98%. That would mean that it would take about 225 days to 270 days for people to be physically weeding that if we didn't have that plastic. So a great benefit from that perspective. Um, from an agrochemical perspective, plasticulture can also provide benefits in reducing the amount of agrochemicals that have to be applied to the crops, and it can also help in protecting the soil from water and wind impacts. And it can increase the nutrient utilization in the plant root zone. So again, just a variety of beneficial impacts. As we're looking at these impacts, beneficial impacts from the marine debris perspective, we also had some concerns about, well, we understand that this plastic can be very beneficial, but we also wanted to make sure that the plastic is not escaping out into our environments. And that's where we came in to try to help with this collaboration, and how can we balance those factors out. And so we started first with an assessment in 2019. And we focused it here in Monterey. We wanted to understand what was the plastic use across Monterey County and Santa Cruz County. And one of the reasons that we did this was we wanted to help guide our work as we moved forward. And so from here, we recognized that drip tape was the highest plastic use based on weight. And we also found that what we were seeing in our ditches was mostly traced back to plastic mulch. So this really, about 81% of the plastic that we found in stream banks draining out from, sorry, I'm getting, there we go. From stream banks that would drain out to the sanctuary from agriculturally dominant watersheds, about 81% of that was mulch. So again, this kind of just aligned our work to focus into alternatives for plastic mulch and recycling opportunities that could maximize the collection. And so, as we move forward today, we'll be hearing from different speakers about alternatives and other practices that can help. And so, I'll kick it off to Alina, that will be talking about plastic alternatives.
Great, thank you, Jasmine. Well, hello everyone. My name is Alina Newson. I'm with the Water Quality Protection Program at the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation on behalf of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And today I'll be discussing soil biodegradable mulches, which can be a sustainable alternative to traditionally used polyethylene foams. And I do want to give a shout out to our collaborative team below. Next slide. So what is a soil biodegradable mulch, also known as a BDM or soil BDM? This material is made to biodegrade in soils upon tillage incorporation, and it can be made from paper or plastic. And today I'm going to be focusing on plastic biodegradable mulches. Now, these materials are manufactured with feedstocks that are bio-based, derived from fossil fuels, or a blend of both. And in order for this material to be considered biodegradable, it has to pass standardized tests where they need to biodegrade 90% in a lab within 2 years. And this is excluding oxo and photodegradable films, which do not break down. These films actually they break down to microplastics, persistent microplastics, whereas soil biodegradable mulches break down due to microbial activity, and then the byproduct is natural elements. Next slide, please. And so why should growers consider soil biodegradable mulch? One, it can provide horticultural benefits that are similar to PE mulch. Because this material is meant to be tilled into the soil, it eliminates the labor and disposal costs associated with sending a crew in to remove this material and then taking it to a landfill, and then the tipping fees associated with it as well. So it helps reduce plastic waste generation and overburdening landfills. And through our trials, we saw that soil biodegradable mulches don't negatively impact soil health between 2 to 4 years. However, we are involved with ongoing studies evaluating the effects of long-term use of this material on soil health parameters. Next slide, please. And so how does this material break down? So at the end of the season, instead of removal again, this material is tilled into the soil. And the way that soil biodegradable mulches are engineered is that they, if you zoom in really closely in their polymer makeup, they have essentially these weak links. Um, and then microbes then come in, consume this material, and as a byproduct, they release carbon dioxide and water. And it's different from polyethylene films, which have chemical bonds that cannot be broken down by microbial activity. Next slide, please. And so in the lab, this process takes about 2 years, and it has to take 2 years in order to be considered biodegradable. However, in our trials, we've been seeing that this material takes about 4 to 5 years to reach that 90% biodegradation. We have explored additives such as liquid compost and neutral unlock to help speed up that biodegradation process, but so far we haven't found any significant differences with those topicals to increase the biodegradation. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so CMSF, the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation, has been involved in numerous trials across the central coast of California. And currently under the USDA Specialty Crop Research Initiative, we are part of a nationwide trial. And here's a photo of our current trial in Monterey County. The biodegradable plastics were applied November of 2024. And through our surveys with growers, we found that for this material to be commercially scalable, it really needs to have a faster biodegradation rate, and it needs to also be approved for organic operations. Next slide, please. And so this is data from a trial in Monterey where we compared I'm not sure if you could see my mouse, but the first green bar is a conventional TIFF film, and the following three bars these are the biodegradable mulch films. And so they did produce about 1 clamshell less per plant. And then when you compare the trays per acre, the biodegradable mulches produce about 1,000 trays less per acre compared to the traditional TIFF standard. But it was comparable to other polyethylene films, such as solar shrink that's shown on the graph. Next slide, please. And then this is data from the same trial, and this was looking at the mulch deterioration of the films during the growing season. And so percent soil exposure is a visual assessment of these films, and what we found was that there is less than 5% of the degradation of the biodegradable mulch films during the growing season, which is good because we want these films to remain intact and perform relatively similar to the PE films throughout the season. Next slide, please. And so through our trials, we've identified some scenarios where we can see BDM succeeding. For example, currently the commercial biodegradable mulches are not TIFF certified, so you cannot fumigate underneath them. And so we see them really working best in fields that have been flat fumigated. A concern that we saw with growers through our surveys was that, especially in growers that co-rotate, or strawberry growers that co-rotate with a veggie grower, it's a food safety concern having this material in the fields. Even though it's biodegrading, these fragments could still end up in a veggie bag during harvest. And so we saw this issue being alleviated with a co-rotation with crops such as brassicas or other crops that are not harvested close to the soil surface. And another important note is that soil biodegradable mulches that are plastic can only be used in conventional operations. Right now with the National Organic Standards Boards, it does allow biodegradable mulch films to be used in organics operations. However, they have specific standards that no commercial plastic biodegradable mulches meet currently. However, paper biodegradable mulches can be used in organic operations. And so these are some helpful resources. I really recommend checking out the Small Fruits Washington State University website for more information about biodegradable mulches. They have really helpful pamphlets on plastic biodegradable mulches as well as paper and hydro mulches. And also through our current specialty crop research initiative grant team, they've released a podcast which is all about mulches, and it's actually really quite entertaining and very interesting. And who would have thought that a podcast about mulch would be interesting? But it really is, and I highly recommend you check it out. And also, our California Marine Sanctuary Foundation YouTube page also has really helpful webinars that we've shared on biodegradable mulches, as well as cover crops and vegetated ditches as well. Slide, please. And then I would like to acknowledge the USDA Specialty Crop Research Initiative Award that has granted us funding. We are part of a nationwide trial again, or there's trials in Washington, Florida, Nebraska, and here in California. And I do want to see if Ismail is on the line to share his experiences with the biodegradable mulch trials.
But we do have a couple of questions in the chat that I think we
Okay.
can jump over to. And the first question that I see here is from Beth that says, are microplastics an issue with the biodegradable plastic mulch? And can plants take them up before they're fully decomposed?
For the microplastics, so as the biodegradable plastic mulches are degrading, they are becoming microplastics. However, they're non-persistent microplastics. So in the lab, it takes 2 years for them to fully become carbon dioxide and water. Whereas in the field, we've seen this process take about 4 to 5 years for that complete transformation of like a plastic material converting into these natural elements. And then for the second part of that question, I'm not confident in answering that.
Yeah, I can help answer a little bit of that. So what Alina mentioned is correct that the plastics are meant to become microplastics, but like she said, it's the time in which they remain that way. As for if the plants are capable of basically taking them in, so when the plastic breaks down, it's becoming carbon dioxide. So it would take it the carbon dioxide maybe in that form. Now, one of the questions that often comes up, and it's part of what we're continuing to understand, is right now we know that the plastic has the ability, or under the lab, in order for it to be considered a biodegradable plastic, it has to have 90% biodegradation. That 10% remaining, we believe that the research shows that it's becoming part of the organism's body, similar to maybe how you and I might consume a food, and part of that becomes part of our body. The other question, though, that is still yet to be answered, and part of why we're continuing to do this research is the nanoplastics, right? So if there is any nanoplastics that are being left, and potentially those could be taken in by the plant, but that is a no. That's still part of the question mark of what the team is still trying to understand. And the other question is from Norm. Hi, Norm. He says, does the carbon dioxide remain sequestered, or is it released into the air during decomposition, during soil prep for the next crop?
Yeah, so I believe that the carbon dioxide gets released into the air after the microbes consume this material. And then they
Yep.
release carbon dioxide and then water as a byproduct.
And the other thing, Norm, is that it might actually depend on what practice is being implemented. For example, if you're putting in a cover crop, as could be a beneficial practice to use when using BDMs. If you have let's say you have a strawberry field, afterwards, you put a cover crop. One, that is going to help so that that vegetation is going to create a cover so that the plastic won't easily be blowing out, because remember that this gets tilled in. And second is that if you have a cover crop, that could potentially help intake some of that carbon. But you're right. Afterwards, in the future, if it gets tilled, that could potentially come back out again. Are there any other questions? Okay, great. Well, we'll move into our next session.
Oh, I think we missed a question from Norm.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, we missed your question on top. So how deep does the soil incorporation need to be to maximize the bio breakdown process? So that is something we've been looking into. With our past trial, um, the tillage was, I believe, around 4 inches deep, and then there were about two passes. Now that was excluding the field work that was prepped by the veggie growers as well. But we do believe when the materials are broken down to smaller fragments, then that can help speed up that process for the microbes to come in and break it down.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, and then for our next talk, we'll be focusing on some of the recycling programs that are available at scale. And before I go and dive deep into our collaboration with ReGen, so we have here with us Jay Ramos and Steve Padilla. I wanted to say when we first started this work, we wanted to see what opportunities were available for growers. And one of the things that we found was some of the manufacturers actually have recycling opportunities. And so I just want to take a quick moment to highlight those. So both Netafim and Rivulis are drip tape manufacturers, and they have created their own recycling programs. In fact, Netafim now has a third-party certification um, that growers can receive confirmation that the drip tape is in fact being recycled. And the way that this works is that the plastic typically has to be mechanically collected, and so then once the plastic, in this case the drip tape, is mechanically collected, they usually require a minimum of 20,000 pounds, and then the plastic could be collected at each of the, or could be collected at the farm. One of the things that we recognized when we were doing this collaboration was that not all growers, one, had the ability to mechanically wound their drip tape, and two, that not all growers, depending on the farm size, would actually have 20,000 pounds of plastic to be collected. And so that's when we joined forces with ReGen, um, and the idea here was that ReGen was having a significant amount of plastic going out to the landfill every year, but that perhaps we could help in diverting some of the hoop house and some of the drip tape through this collection program. And so through this collection program, a grower, anyone within the county and Santa Cruz County can deliver their drip tape and their hoop house. It does not have to be mechanically rolled, although they do accept mechanically rolled plastic as well. And then ReGen will bale this plastic. At the end, once the plastic is baled, flipping iron will come, collect this plastic, and take it out for recycling. So a little bit of things that we want to go into detail for this collection program. One is, again, it only applies to drip tape and hoop house film. And it actually can save money in regards to the tipping fee. The traditional tipping fee is $112. It actually went up from $107 to $112 now per ton. And so through this program, a grower would only be paying $50 per ton. Now, what are the requirements to keep in mind? One is that the plastic cannot be mixed with other plastics. So you really do want the drip tape to be separate from any other plastics, and the hoop house to be separate from other plastics, including the drip tape. You don't want it to be contaminated with other materials such as tires, pieces of wood, paper, or glass. You only want to be taking in the plastic. And heavy sink ties are okay to tie down the plastic, but other materials are not encouraged to be used. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to ReGen, you can reach out to us. But we're really proud to say that Over the last couple of years of this program, on an annual prevention impact, we've been able to divert 750 pounds of hoop house films and about 1.5 million pounds of drip tape that have all been diverted out of the landfill and collected by flipping iron to be recycled into other materials. In addition to that, ReGen also provides a pesticide container recycling program. We'll share with you all the flyer for 2025. But in essence, each year, ReGen, and in fact, this program is actually available across California. So you can reach out to your local ag commissioner's office and they will indicate to you where you could recycle your pesticide container. In the last numbers that I had checked, California was at 90% of recycling their pesticide containers. Or I'm sorry, Monterey County was at 90%, California was at 60%. And so there's still some opportunity for growers that might not be familiar to participate. But if you are interested specifically for Monterey County, you can reach out to this local number here. And then again, if you're outside of Monterey County, you can reach your local ag commissioner's office and they can indicate to you what are the days for collecting and recycling pesticide containers. Is there anything, Steve or Jay, that you would like to add to this?
No, I would say that the only thing really is that it just needs to be the drip tape just needs to be able to be handled by a baler. Sometimes it comes in with the bigger rolls, but we're able to handle just about anything here at our facility and process it. We're able to break it down pretty small and get it through a baler.
Sorry, I misread the email. Okay, thank you. And we'll pass it over to the Flipping Iron team to talk a little bit about the other services that they provide.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Perfect. My name is Salvador Flores, and we have Adolfo as well here at Adolfo Toscano. We're with Flipping Iron Inc. We're a recycling company based out of Bakersfield, but we operate all over California, and we've even recently gone into neighboring states now. And before I misspeak and say we're a recycling company, I'm going to quote my boss, Darren. We're a problem-solving company. Saying that is we work with a lot of hard-to-handle plastics. And I know Jasmine mentioned on drip tape and hoop house film, but we work with growers to, when it comes to ground cover films, they're wet, they're dirty, and they're heavy. And Flipping Iron Inc. has developed some practices that we're able to work with these plastics to make it easier for them to be recyclable and easier for them to be transportable. We work with hoop house, drip tape, fine cover, fumigation film, broadcast flat fume, freeze cloth, low tonal film, and mulch film, and many other plastics. But we were trying to find a way where we could help growers transport this in a way that, we're not just pulling it out by hand because when it rains, it gets heavier, it accumulates more dirt. And we started using the Andros mega binders. As an example here, we have the 3PT, the DTR, and the LRV. These three choices will, depending on what you need, we have something available for you. And just to show you an example of how these work, I'm gonna play a video of a drip hose being rolled.
Sal, just so you know,
Oh, sorry.
I don't think that your slides are moving.
Oh, sorry. Do you see these right here?
I think it's still in your cover.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Sorry about that. Can you see this better?
Yes, we can
Uh,
see it now. Thank you.
okay, you see this better right here?
Yes, now it's working.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So I'll go back to the mega binders. We have 3PT here, the DTR and the LRV. So depending on what you need, there's a machine for you. But I'm going to show a quick video on how it's rolled. So what this does, it creates tight, large rolls that not only are they easier to transport, but they're also they keep water and dirt away. So they won't gain any additional weight. And we ask the growers to put them in a certain location, and we go and pick them up, depending on the agreement we have with them. But I wanted to show some statistics on how this works to reduce costs for growers with transporting fees. But in 2023 in Oxnard, which was relatively a very wet year, the comparison of having uh, the mulch rolled versus hand pulled and stored, we were getting about 1,250 pounds per acre versus 2,450 pounds per acre. So this is a great practice that we use to reduce costs, not just for growers, but for transport fees. Um, and it works for all the other plastics that we take from growers and we recycle. But this was just the very beginning. We drip tape and hoop house; those are easily recyclable plastics. But when it came to mulch, it was something that, it wasn't something that could be recycled here in the States. It's very dirty. It's going to be very, it's going to take a long time for us to clean it, to process it. But that's how we got into a relationship with NOAA Sea Grant and CMSF. And with the Marine Debris Challenge, we were able to acquire funding to create um, a processing line that I'll talk to in my next slides. But in the meantime, I'm gonna pass this on to Tanya, and she's gonna give a little more information regarding the the grant.
And before we pass it on to Tanya, I just want to open it up to any questions. Does anybody have any questions in regards to the recycling program at ReGen or any of the services outside of the mulch that Flipping Iron provides? As Sal mentioned, the services that they provide expand across different ag plastics, and their services are also available across California. Okay, I don't think I see any questions. But I do have here as well the flyer of um, of the recycling program for the pesticide container. So if you guys want to take a picture of that, we will also be sending it out via email for all the people that have registered. But in essence, it has a series of dates on which pesticide containers can be taken to ReGen for recycling. Steve, is there anything that you or Jay want to mention about this recycling program for pesticide containers?
No, as long as it's following the guidelines for the triple rinse, and then there's normally come in either plastic bags or tied together with string or a rope. We'll accept it either way.
Okay, thank you for that. Seeing that there are no questions, does anybody want to unmute themselves and ask any questions? If not, we can move on to our next speaker. Okay, Tanya, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Sal. I just want to briefly introduce myself and the project that Sal spoke of before I pass it back to him to give you more of the details that you came here for. But hello, my name is Tanya Torres, and I'm a research associate with California Sea Grant. So Sea Grant, this program is modeled after the Land Grant College Act. And so we're one of 34 different programs across the country that is mandated to support applied coastal research, similar to how land grant institutions do a lot of work with agriculture. And like Jasmine mentioned earlier, plastics and in particular films have revolutionized the agricultural industry. But we are now seeing the breakdown and the escape of these plastics polluting our watersheds and oceans. And so that's kind of what have got our organizations involved. And despite, California Central Coast being a global leader in both marine conservation and also agricultural production, these two sectors have had very limited engagement in the past in trying to prevent this issue. And so this funding specifically that has come down through recent federal investments to prioritize marine debris pollution through our program has allowed for this cross-sector team to come together and collaborate on advancing technology, different practices, and transferring of knowledge between these sectors that are showing signs of improving agricultural plastic film recycling and reducing pollution in California. And so I'm just going to give a little brief overview of the project. You can go to the next slide, please. And then I'll pass it back over to Sal. But so this project is a research project that we are looking at a few different aspects of the system. So looking at retrieval, what are best practices for retrieving mulch plastic from fields that are user friendly to the grower, cost effective, and limits the amount of plastics that are left behind, because that's our motive here. We're also looking at recycling. So how can we actually reduce the contamination that gets onto mulch plastics so that it can be a viable candidate for recycling? We're partnering with, like Sal mentioned, Andrus Engineering, looking at a dry wash processing line that he'll explain a little more about in just a moment. And then the last piece of our project is really thinking about this adoption. So how can we ensure that these practices are cost effective, accessible, available for any grower that needs them? So we are looking at doing outreach, just like these webinars. We've done a lot of in-person demo days, obtaining surveys and feedback from growers. We're also conducting an economic analysis as well. So trying to make sure that all those are taken care of. But I would like to give it back to Sal so we can go into a little more information on the retrieval and the recycling aspects of the project. That is probably a little more interesting to you guys. So thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. I'll be sharing my screen again. And back to the problem-solving company that mentioned that we were. Problem that we had was we have plastic that goes to the landfill. When it comes to mulch, we have largest amount of plastic going to the landfill. That's very necessary. So it's not like we can't stop using this mulch film. And we when we started retrieving it, and here's a short video on the retrieval process of mulch film. We were trying to figure out the problems that we had, which was it's dirty, it's heavy. We need to figure out a way that we can recycle this. So when it comes to the processing line, the first step is the retrieval. It has to be mechanically retrieved, and we use the Andros mega binders because they are dense, they are large, and because the dry processing line was created with these Andros mega binders in mind. And the second part of this recycling process is the processing line. If you can see here, we have a guillotine. It gets fed through there, and I believe it's cut in 5 different sections. And then from there, it goes into a trommel. The trommel pushes it forward, and while it spins, it actively gets rid of water and additional biomass that add weight um, to the mulch film. And after it goes to a trommel, it goes into one of two of these elevators here on the picture. Andrew's actually developed these elevators for this processing line, and it pushes the material through the process. And ultimately, the last part of this processing line is the baling. It bales the material, and of course, it's in a way where it's transportable and ultimately taken to a third party that can process it into a cleaner material. And unfortunately, this is not something that could be done in the US yet due to amount of labor and water usage. We are sending this overseas to a place where it's a viable source of plastic. And this past year, we did a lot of we were able to recycle about 8,000 acres of mulch and fumigation. And it's a great thing because normally this would have gone to the landfill, but it's just a small part still. I believe there's about 30,000 acres of of, of strawberry acres in California, and we only did about 8,000 acres. So there's still a lot of potential to grow and recycle mulch. And this is just strawberry, and that's why these meetings here are very important because we want to relay the message to what we're doing here with NOAA, with CMSF, and Andros, so people are aware that these plastics don't have to go to the landfill, and we can recycle and do something with them. And I do have additional videos here of the guillotine. It's actually pretty cool. It's when you see it in person, it's really, really cool. Yeah, it's a slow process, but it's very effective. I'm just gonna cut through and show a little bit of the trommel as well. Let me see.
Just that you know, Sal, right now they're in the small screens.
Oh, can you see it there?
We could see it, but it's the small screen, not the big screen.
Oh, got it. I'm sorry. It's for some reason it's just showing the. And then here is a picture of the baled mulch film after it's been processed through the dry wash. And again, like I mentioned, we're based in Bakersfield, but we operate all over California, and we've been fortunate enough to be expanding to neighboring states. And we hope to be able to offer these services to whoever needs them.
Yeah, and well, people, if anybody has questions, I see some here. Um, One of the things that I've also seen from some of the growers that we've worked and collaborated with is that sometimes there's sort of a more of a co-op approach to it where they might share a mega binder and then collect it that way rather than one person if one person itself doesn't have enough acreage, they might be able to share a mega binder. The other thing too is that the team with Flipping Iron does rent the machines out as Sal mentioned, and so they can work around, you know, depending on how many days you need the mega binder, they can work and sort of set those details out with each grower. I see that there's a question here from Essie Hinton, and it says, so to summarize, Flipping iron uses mechanical processing, which, as I understand, will result in plastics that are weaker. Oh, I can't see the rest of the questions in their bonds than the original plastics. What are the follow-on uses for this product? From the plastic that they collect. Okay, so I think that they're asking that after the plastic gets collected and processed through the wash line, um, maybe they're asking if the plastics are weaker after they've been through the processing line, and then what is made with this recycled plastic.
Adolfo, can you answer it?
And I can actually help answer that
Okay.
question because this is something that we've looked
Can
at.
you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't letting me unmute myself.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, hello. My name is Adolfo. I'm the sales rep for Flipping Iron. I'm the one that kind of deals with like how would you say this, boots on ground with the actual ranchers themselves. I also organize all the pickups, all the rental equipment, such as the mega binder and whatnot. But to answer the question, it does not affect it at all because technically the process that we have with the processing line is the first step in cleaning it. Pretty much we get it cleaned enough to where we can transport it to other places who have full-on wash lines that are able to clean it 100% or not 100%, but like to 90%. Once it's cleaned to that 90%, they actually remelt it down to what we call regrind, which is like little pellets. So it doesn't affect the bonds of the plastic at all. But since it is plastic that's sits on the beds for a couple months throughout the year, it does degrade the plastic itself. So it's not pristine plastic as would be like hoop film and drip tape and whatnot, but it is used in lower grade plastics, like for example, like construction sheeting, single use bags, and stuff, yeah, pretty much stuff like that.
Yeah. And Sarah, or not Sarah, sorry. Hinton, S.E. Hinton, uh, I also, if you want to unmute yourself, you can also, if you have any other additional questions, you can follow up on that question. I think you have the ability to unmute yourself.
That's a yes. So I'm in the awkward position of being in two Zooms, which is part of the reason I'm not visible. But so I'm very familiar with a kind of plastic processing that turns plastics into so-called virgin beads. And as was just mentioned, um, those beads have to be used in lower grade products. And so I'm having a hard time understanding what would be a lower grade product than a film spread out over a farm. I mean, single-use plastic bags. So that was my question, really.
Yeah. And so yeah, we agree that there's a little bit of difficulty in finding a product that can take this plastic. So right now, as Adolfo and Sal were mentioning, it could go into either other films, or I know that sometimes it also goes into like construction pipes. And beyond that, that is also a question that we have where we would like for this plastic to be recycled domestically within California. And as part of our SCRI project, so the project that Alina mentioned, the funding from that funding, that was an $8 million project. It's also tackling a portion of that project is tackling how you could potentially recycle this plastic. And one of the things that we're exploring in there, and we're actually going to cover this in a future webinar in more detail, but I'll give you a sneak peek into it, is can this plastic be used to create asphalt? And we think that this is a serious venture that could be explored, because in essence, right now, asphalt uses sort of the oil at the bottom of the oil barrels into creating certain layers of asphalt. So potentially, we could be using this kind of plastic to create what would be considered an engineered landfill, but that would still, divert the ag plastic out from landfills, but have it go into an engineered landfill that could be helpful for communities and societies. So it's a great question, and yes, it could be difficult, but part of right now they found a couple of sources, and then we're also exploring more domestic opportunities here within California. Yeah, thank you. And if there's any other questions, I think I see that Ricardo's in the call, and Ricardo Duarte, I don't know if I'm going to put you on the spot, but I know that you've worked a little bit in creating like post from recycled mulch. Would you like to speak about that experience, Ricardo?
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to turn my camera on. Let me see. Yeah, we make plastic lumber, like plastic posts and plastic boards. I don't. I have samples here, but I don't have them with me where you could see what they look like. But that's an application. We recycle drape tape. We don't recycle any mulch film. It's the dirt content is too high, and we've worked with Flipping Iron and with Andros in the past. Yeah, there's some applications that can use lower quality plastics. Plastic lumber could be one of them. The problem with plastic lumber is that it's not consumers are not buying much of that. It's difficult to sell plastic lumber.
Mm-hmm.
There are probably about 10, 20 companies in the US that are making plastic lumber, but I think sales for most companies are pretty low of that product. It would be nice if more consumers would buy products made with recycled plastic. We don't see that happening much.
Yeah, thank you, Ricardo. And I get, yeah, you guys are absolutely right that it is difficult, and so again, that was why also we're working with the University of Chico and Washington State University's engineering center to look at how we could potentially use mulch into asphalt production. And another question that comes up here from Jamie is, can this plastic be used to create ag mulch again? I will attest that this was something that I really tried to push for and really wanted to explore. And so part of the reason for this is because with the drip tape, earlier in the presentations, we showcased the drip tape recycling program from the manufacturers. And so, for example, with Netafim, they're reusing their drip tape and putting it back into ag plastic, including drip tape and heavy wall um, drip tubing. And so we being the foundation, the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation, the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary Foundation, and the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, we had the same question. Can we do a similar model with mulch? And what we found is that it would actually be very difficult. And there's a couple of reasons for that. We have to get a little bit in the weeds to understand it, but I'll explain it. So in essence, drip tube or drip tape is very different than ag mulch for a couple of reasons. One, it is significantly thicker. And two, it's significantly cleaner. So the inside of a drip tip or drip tape would never have seen soil inside of it. It's only agrochemicals and water that are passing through. So it's in essence pretty pristine. On the other hand, the mulch, it's a lot thinner. And also, if you look at it from sort of a microscopic level, it's kind of built a little bit like a net. And so you have a lot of soil that gets trapped in here. And so that's what makes it very difficult because once you're putting it into the like the facilities that are going to process it really takes down the machines. It just becomes a nightmare. And so putting it back into mulch would be too costly. It would be cost prohibitive. It would also not be the most environmentally sustainable approach to have. And so that's why we opted not to go on that route. And then the other thing too is that the ag plastic is meant to be outdoors. So you would want to have a material that is always going to be consistent, and that it's going to be a high quality material that can survive the season. And so for these reasons, it really didn't make sense to have mulch go back into mulch. However, we are exploring other opportunities, and we see it more viable going into something like asphalt, where it would still be able to take in contamination and without having the plastic to be so clean, and then but still find a home for it. Yeah, thank you, Jamie. And if anybody else has any questions, feel free to either add it here in the chat, or we can also unmute you. Okay, it may seem like that's the only questions that we have for now. And before we open it into discussion, I wanted to, let me share my screen again. I wanted to share a couple of announcements. So one is that if you have a strong interest in learning more about agricultural plastic recycling, there is a special conference that we all attend, and you will hear very detailed workshops from the engineers, from the plastic manufacturers, from the growers in these conferences. So the next one is coming up in hosted in San Diego, from August 13 to the 15 in 2025. And you can register here. It's the Ag Plastics Recycling Conference. We actually hosted a workshop last year. And if you go to our YouTube page and the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation's YouTube page, you can actually find those workshops from those conferences in our site. And they will go into detail. We're still in the process of uploading some of them, but the ones that are added in now go into detail on the biodegradable mulch. There's a presentation on mulch being used in asphalt. For example, if you had more interest in learning more about that's a pre-recorded webinar that is in there. And then we also have another presentation where the Andros team talks a little bit more about the engineering behind a mega binder and the dry processing line, if you have interest about that. And those presentations are available in Spanish and in English. The other thing that we wanted to share is that CalCan has announced their next round of funding, and so there is an opportunity there for growers to apply for an equipment sharing grant. And so this could be a unique opportunity to purchase a mega binder and share it with other growers. And you can apply to that funding through your local resource conservation district. And so this is also available across California for growers all across California state. And we have, as you know, this is our series of webinars for this year. So we're hosting another webinar that is going to be focused on international practices and policies around Plasticulture, and that is going to be hosted on the week of July 2nd. So if you have an interest, we will keep you posted. We'll be sharing out that announcement and that registration here soon. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. We're always happy to help answer some of those questions. And we also often host demonstration events. So if your region would be interested in participating in one of our trials or in having a demonstration event or an outreach field day, we would be happy to share that. Our programs have expanded across, our trials have expanded across California's Central Coast. So we host trials here in Monterey County, Santa Cruz County, but we also host trials in Ventura County and Santa Barbara County. And with that, we'll open it up to a discussion. And we also have a survey that we would really appreciate if you could take the survey. Again, all of this work that we do is funded through federal grants, and so this really helps us provide feedback on the work that we're doing. And if people have any additional comments, this is a great spot to share that in. Great, and I'll now allow everyone to unmute themselves if anybody wants to come into a discussion. But with that, thank you all very much. We'll stay here for another 8 minutes until 11:15 to help answer any questions. One of the questions that I'll ask actually is, Sal, do you guys have any like social media pages or phone numbers that people can reach you out to if they're interested in accessing your guys' services?
Yes, all those socials are Flipping Iron Inc. Our phone numbers, or you can visit us online at flippingironinc.com, and our numbers there. You can call us there, shoot us an email, info or marketing at Flipping Iron Inc., and we'll be able to give you more information on all of our services. But on our website, you'll find everything there.
And thank you, Sal. And the other question that I had was for Stephen and Jay. One of the things that we're seeing more and more now is that, you know, tipping fees are going up. And is this something that can be expected for the future as well? I think that the numbers that we were hearing from Santa Barbara County was that their tipping fee went from $90 to $180. And this was actually one of the reasons that some of the growers in those areas were interested in participating in the biodegradable mulch trials and also in the recycling efforts. Do you guys have any insight on that? Tipping fees potentially going up?
Yeah, I believe Jay is getting a response right now.
Okay. I also see that there is a question in the chat. Oh, so Norm is asking if the mulch trials or mulch field test coordinated with the California Strawberry Commission trials at Cal Poly SLO. We were in contact with Gerald, and so we are actually hoping that for the next season we can do a trial on the biodegradable mulch at the Cal Poly SLO. I know that we hosted a trial there a couple of years ago, and then they do want to set another trial on the biodegradable so that they can have that demonstration for the field day. And then last year we actually did a demo in collaboration with the California Strawberry Commission and the California Strawberry Center at the SLO field day, and we did a demo on the mechanical collection of mulch using a mega binder. And so we had Ben from Andrews Engineering and Theron out there as well.
And then,
Yes, as operating costs are increasing, the rate are going up in July. Check our website.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it sounds like the costs are going up in July for tipping fees, and we can follow up with more information on that website. Thank you, Jay.
thanks, Jay. I was just going to add to your question, Norm, that we are collaborating with Cal Poly SLO right now, currently on our Sea Grant project, and we're working with Dr. Sita Sisla's soil analysis lab, and they're conducting soil sampling at our trials, and we're looking at the fate and distribution of the agricultural plastics. During different times of when the plastic is being removed and tillage, and we're assessing fence lines as well and how they can provide as a barrier to help prevent plastics from escaping out of the fields. And so that's a part of our ongoing marine debris challenge.
Yeah, no, thank you, Norman. And the other thing too is we have as part of the trials, we've been also interacting a lot with the manufacturers. And so some of the manufacturers are also helping and developing mulch technologies that can be more easily removed. So whether that be fortifying the sides, or improving their formulas, so that way that removal process could be more efficient and more easy for the growers. And so in some of our next trials, we're going to be trialing some of the new mulch technology. But yeah, it's been great to see that involvement from the manufacturers as well. And then also looking at, how can we allow for this to be long term in California, without having to necessarily rely on exporting the plastic out of California. Great. Well, if there are no other questions, we again want to just thank you all for your time, and we'll be ending this recording and then sharing it out with all of you. But again, this recording will be located in our YouTube page, the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation's YouTube page, along with other videos that are available there now for you to watch if you're interested.